Hi people, Morino Ravenberg here again. I have another neutral topic, and anyone that has an opinion on this in any way, shape, or form is more than welcome, obviously, to contribute more so than usual. Bottom line is, as you can see from the header, I would like to know if people out there, or for those of you watching this, better said, are you pro-life or anti-life? And no, I'm not talking specifically about childbirth. No, I'm not gonna go there. I am referring to the fact that, for example, some people in the world are or let's just say they are handicapped. People that are whose lives have been compromised. People whose lives are or have been compromised. It doesn't matter whether it's been the case ever since birth or whether some other traumatic event brought it on, mentally and or physically, to the point where they can't even carry out the most basic of tasks. A simple example is, for example, someone that got involved in a car crash or a car collision, a traffic collision. That person's spine is completely destroyed, and that person can't do the most basic of things that the average person can do. We're talking about walking, moving around, nothing. That person has been reduced to a vegetable. Person could literally not even wipe his or her own ass, and has to have all of that stuff done for him by a caretaker or a nurse, you name it. And let's just say there is realistically no solution or no remedy or medical treatment to make that person better. And even if you were to go out on a limb and say that medical science in the future might come up with something revolutionary, aside from the fact that it's still far-fetched, it would take maybe a decade or two even. Bottom line is the person is reduced to a vegetable. And by the way, I'm not just referring to people, I'm referring to animals, you name it, anything that lives and that makes use of motor functions. So mammals in general. And are you in favor of having that person euthanized? For those of you that don't know what euthanasia is, euthanasia means assisted suicide. Are you in favor of euthanasia, or would you rather have that person live that way for the rest of his or her life? As in staying like a vegetable, just sitting in a chair, not being able to move. Person can't even talk, nothing, Person's completely deformed or malformed. We're talking about like that. Staying like that in a wheelchair or similar for the rest of your lives. Everything having to be done for that person. Person needs to be fed. The person is reduced in essence to a newborn baby, and even newborn babies can cry. This person cannot even make, at best the person can only make grunting noises or inaudible noises or noises that are simply noise, indistinguishable. The person can't ride, nothing. And even if that were the case, the person can ride, the person can still talk. It's still a heavy burden to carry, to say the least. Imagine not being able to walk even. All the stuff you take for granted, all of your basic sensory, all of your basic motor skills, things that you take completely for granted, that most of us take for granted pretty much. Are you in favor of leaving that person like that and just saying, okay, let that person be taken care of for the rest of his or her life? Or are you in favor of having that person euthanized? The conditions in general are that obviously the person's decision also plays a part. But let's just say worst case scenario, the person says, I don't want to die, I just want to keep on living, blah 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 blah. And what would your decision be? Because I'm not gonna lie, I am very much pro that. The topic just came to mind because I've seen people that are literally like that, and I'm like, seriously, man, what point is there in living if you literally look like a malformed kangaroo that was run over by a semi-truck, and you can't even wipe your own ass? You need to have your ass wiped for you, you need to be fed, everything. Especially as an adult. Imagine how dehumanizing it is as an adult. Let alone an animal, for example, a dog that's completely crippled, the dog can't walk, the dog is literally like Something along those lines. Nah, I'm pro euthanasia. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not saying you should go around killing people or killing creatures en masse, but after careful evaluation and whatnot, regardless of the person's wishes, I would still opt for suicide. I would still opt for euthanasia. I would simply talk to the person and say, listen, man, okay, we're talking about a heavy-handed level of counseling. Hey, listen, buddy, you've seen for yourself. You can't do anything. You can't even wipe your own ass. You can't do anything, literally anything. From a rational perspective, think to the best of your ability, assuming that you can still think. What point is there in going on living? Because you have no life to begin with. So what point is there in going on? There is no point in going on. So yeah, I'm pro euthanasia. I'm not gonna lie to you. Under the right circumstances, of course, other factors come into play too. It depends on the individual. It depends on the situation, etc., etc., etc. But just from a broad scope or on a broad level, just think of the people, for example, that are locked up in insane asylums, people that are so far gone mentally, and people that are in homes for the handicapped, people that the likes of which I described. These people can't even walk, they can't even wipe their ass, they can't do anything. They're vegetables. The way that society deals with it right now is that people simply turn a blind eye because they simply don't have the mental fortitude to deal with that kind of harsh reality. And let's just say these kind of people are the people that criminals too, by the way, to a lesser extent, are people that society wants to forget about, or society wants to pretend that these people do not exist because simply acknowledging their existence is too painful. They remind society of the evils, okay, the negative drawbacks of society itself. They remind society of itself and the negative side of itself, and a side that they don't want to be reminded of, that it does not want to be reminded of. So yeah, what they basically do, individuals obviously don't have the balls to make these kind of harsh decisions. I do, but and they just leave it up to the government, and the government also doesn't have the balls to deal with them, so they just shove these people in homes and asylums, and let's just say faraway places and buildings where pretty much no one can see them, hear them, and whatnot, or the majority of society cannot see them, hear them, and whatnot. And as the saying goes, out of sight, out of mind. So yeah, but they're there nevertheless, and their existence cannot be ignored. I don't ignore their existence, but I don't have a problem with harsh reality, regardless of how harsh it is. So yeah, that's the way society realistically deals with these kinds of outlying members of society itself. But yeah, my question is: are you pro euthanasia or anti? Are you pro death or anti death? Are you of the opinion that these people should simply, regardless of what kind of horrible state they find themselves in, they're complete vegetables, they should still be taken care of to the point where they die themselves naturally, or something else happens to them, they choke on something, you name it? Or are you like me and you say yay, and you're pro euthanasia? Okay, realistically, honestly, the way, it doesn't matter, there's no escaping it. These people are a drain on the government, on government resources. They're draining government resources. They're literally just eating up taxpayers' money. And I'm not saying I would kill people willy-nilly, but I would definitely take care of, under careful deliberation, let's just say through a trajectory, a certain 5 or 6 step program. Yeah, honestly, bottom line is I would euthanize these people, regardless of their wishes. I would simply provide them with heavy-handed counseling, the whole point of which is to convince them that, listen, from a rational perspective, every angle, continuing with living, going on, is no use. You're just going to be an idiot just sitting there and nothing. And yeah, in any case, I would opt for euthanasia, euthanizing these people. It's always better if the person agrees to it, but if the person doesn't agree to it, that makes it a bit more complicated, you name it. Another factor that comes into play too is that governments do not want to be seen as the bad guy, obviously. Otherwise, they can kiss their administration goodbye and being re-elected goodbye. If they're seen as, the government or the cabinet or administration that kills people or that euthanizes people. But I am in favor of it. It's better for society overall. I'm not gonna lie to you. The same thing with animals. I mean, seriously, I would rather honestly euthanize an animal than see an animal spend the rest of its life, for example a pet, alongside the street with little to nothing in the way of resources to live off of for consumptive purposes or otherwise. So without any food or water, what kind of life is that? Just put that thing out of its misery. And same thing with people, just put that person out of his or her misery. It serves no purpose, to keep going on and whatnot. I realize how brutal I am for saying this, okay? But how gruesome I am for saying this. But yeah, bottom line is I am pro-death. And my question to you is, on the question pro-death, yay or nay? So that's it. Let me know what you guys think. Bye.